Friends, we are at a truly critical moment in history. A moment where the powerful elites are desperately trying to hold on to their influence. And let's be clear, those elites include Zionists with a stranglehold on global politics and occupation of America and Palestine, on the media, and on finance. The Epstein scandal? Yes, it goes far deeper than the mainstream media would ever admit. It wasn't just some isolated incident, you know, of debauchery, some isolated island of debauchery, have you? It was a carefully crafted blackmail operation. And if you follow the trail, it leads back straight to Mossad. This is how they control the influential through blackmail, secrets, and manipulation. You think I'm exaggerating? Let's look at the current storm swirling around Sean Diddy Combs. His name's been dragged into this murky underworld of exploitation. But what's even more disturbing is how his ties seem to go back to Mossad and the Mossad run blackmail ring that Epstein and his crew operated. This isn't about sex trafficking or exploitation alone. It's about blackmailing high profile figures to push a Zionist agenda in global geopolitics in the most diabolical way possible. Epstein was no rogue actor. Uh, the disgraced I think he was attorney general under the Trump administration, even said that he didn't touch Epstein during a congressional hearing because Epstein was intelligence. So you tell me what I'm supposed to fucking think about that, given that Epstein was in this partnership with Ghislaine Maxwell, whose father, Robert Maxwell, has been well established to have been a asset of Mossad. He was part of an intelligence operation that served the interests of Zionist power, manipulating US politics and UK politics for decades. And right now, as these connections are coming to light, the establishment media is working overtime to bury the truth. Instead of real investigations, we get bread and circuses. The 2024 election is the perfect example of this. The mainstream media and political elites want us distracted in this kayfabe fight between Chase Oliver Stein and Harris and Trump. These four in this WWE Survivor Series shit. Okay, you know the mainstream media and political elites absolutely want us distracted by this shit. They want us fixated on these puppet candidates, making sure the system stays rigged in their favor. But amidst all the noise, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai is the only candidate brave enough to challenge this corrupted system head on. He's exposing how elections in America are rigged by design, as he did in my own state in Arizona. And he's uncovering the deep ties between our political elite and foreign powers like Israel, that are currently the occupiers of this country. He is a direct threat to their grip on power. While the media and establishment ignore Dr. Shiva, what do we see? We see Jill Stein bowing to Mehdi Hassan on the topic of multipolarity, right? I totally butchered that word, didn't I? But yeah, but I got it right this time. But yeah, Stein, who sabotaged the Ventura McKinney 2020 campaign, uh, two people on a ticket who could have actually shifted the political landscape, is now undermining any serious discussion on global multipolar leadership. She's conceded to Hassan a mouthpiece for the very globalist, pro Zionist establishment that continues to steer world events in the favor of Western hegemony. We cannot forget Stein's role in kneecapping uh, real resistance, as far as, realer than her, campaign, third one in a row. I mean, fourth one in a row if you want to take, in account all her runs for big office. She ran for governor once, and long time ago when the dinosaurs existed. But kneecapping, actual campaigns that could accumulate greater support with the type of ballot access that she's hijacked. First Ventura's campaign in the 2020 cycle, but now, uh, you know, Cornel West in this cycle. Cornel West's campaign was totally fucking obliterated by her brand of sabotage. Every time real anti-Western hegemonists rise in the fucking uh, in this fucking system, this fucking electoral system, there's Stein inserting saboteurs into key roles and throwing in the towel before the fight even starts, because she's not in the fight. She's in the fight for the side of the Zionists. She is a deceiver, and I will not stop saying it. She is a fucking deceiver. And speaking of surrender, though, and deception, but, not, Zionist Jew deception and Stein's court, but speaking of Jesuit deception, let's address Nick Fuentes and his promotion of defeatism on the Palestinian front, basically telling the Palestinians to, quote, take the L. What we're seeing from Fuentes isn't just a misstep, it is strategic defeatism, as I outlined just now. His rhetoric sends a clear message: give up on Palestinian liberation because Sinwar got taken out. Don't resist. It's a lost cause. This kind of narrative is exactly what the Zionist establishment wants. They want us demoralized, passive, and accepting of Israel's continued genocidal policies against the Palestinian people. Fuentes, whether he realizes it or not, is playing right into their hands by telling his followers, his groypers, to abandon hope for the Palestinian cause. But let me tell you something. The Palestinian fight is not over. They just took out the affably named Butcher of Gaza, the leader of the 401st Armored Brigade of the IDF. And that is a powerful message that they have sent. And it won't be over as long as there are people willing to resist Zionist domination. Now, I'm not going to pick sides in the trivial, ego driven meme war going on between Sneeko and Fuentes. Frankly, it's embarrassing that in the face of such monumental global issues, we've got these two figures bickering over their nonsense in a meme war, while they're trading jabs over who can make the edgiest content or who's the biggest provocateur. The real power structures are laughing. They want us divided. They want us fighting over petty internet drama. And while they continue to consolidate power, that's what this whole meme war is. It is a distraction from the real issues, and neither Sneeko nor Fuentes is offering a legitimate challenge to the Zionist establishment. But I do want to point something out, you know, something serious about, Sneeko's recent banning from Kick, the platform that I have recently, you know, taken a great liking to and have been talking to, for a while about, shifting the show over here. It's been a slow growth, I have to say. But now I'm most concerned about Sneeko's ban from this platform. And I stand against it. And this isn't just a personal grievance. I have nothing personal, no horse in the game when it comes to whatever Sneeko does. But this is a sign of a bigger issue. Platforms like Kick, which should be open spaces for free expression, that's at least the way it was sold to me, are folding under Zionist pressure. Now, granted, I don't consider Sneeko the most effective form of resistance, but he's more of a form of resistance than Fuentes, who tells the Palestinian people to take the L. Fuentes's promotion that I just outlined of Palestinian defeatism. They are banning voices like Sneeko because the establishment is terrified of anyone who speaks out against the status quo. It's censorship, plain and simple. I don't like it, and neither should you. But let's not pretend that this meme war between Sneeko and Fuentes is anything more than an ego contest, distracting us from the real fights that we need to be waging. And what's the real fight? Breaking the stranglehold of Zionist influence over our politics and media. Exposing the blackmail ring, the corruption, and the manipulations that keep us enslaved to a system that benefits a tiny elite at the expense of everyone, and I mean everyone else. And there's only one candidate in this 2024 election who has any courage to do just that, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. He's calling out the rigged election system, the backroom deals, and foreign influence operations. He's not afraid to name names and expose the deep corruption that has infiltrated our government. Dr. Shiva's campaign represents hope, but it's going to take more than just supporting him. It's going to take organizing, mobilizing, and waking people up to the truth. This fight isn't just about one election. It's about tearing down the entire corrupt system and building a new one that serves the people, not the Zionist elites. We need to resist their manipulation, expose their blackmail rings, and stand with the forces of truth and justice. The fight against Zionist control is the defining battle of our time. And Dr. Shiva Ayyadurais 2024 presidential campaign offers us a way out of this corrupted, manipulated system. And he knows a shit ton about systems, being a systems scientist. It's time to rise up, resist the distractions, and focus on what truly matters, exposing the corruption, breaking the Zionist stranglehold, and fighting for a free, sovereign future. Other than Shiva, another inspiration of hope and vigilance is the successful conclusion of the BRICS summit in Kazan. And that's what I'll be breaking down right now. And so to dive in, you might have heard some mainstream reports mention this summit, but they often miss the deeper, powerful undercurrents shaping global, geopolitics. BRICS, an alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has evolved from an economic club to a political powerhouse with serious implications for the global balance of power. This group of nations that no longer sees itself as merely economic competitors, but as a coalition challenging Western dominance on the global stage. And so, yeah, I'm going to break down the key outcomes of this summit. And we're going to look at the geopolitical significance and reflect on what this means for a future where non Western nations refuse to be pawns in a game dominated by Zionist and Western hegemonist agendas. So, first, let's talk about India's unique role. During the summit, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a key meeting with Iran's newly elected president. This conversation focused on strengthening relations and addressing shared concerns in global affairs. Now, there's an irony here that's hard to miss. India is simultaneously engaging diplomatically with Iran while supplying military drones, weapons, and explosives to Israel. This situation reflects India's tightrope act. And while Modi's government faces pressure to appease both Zionist and Eastern allies, BRICS is urging nations like India to choose peace and sovereignty or loyalty to Western hegemony. India has, until now, sought to play sides, but the BRICS commitment to non alignment calls for something stronger than fence sitting. So in an alliance that condemns Israel's actions, India's support of an apartheid regime, at least, uh, arming support, uh, India's support of that regime in that respect is more than just business as usual. It's a fundamental challenge to the principles BRICS claims to uphold. Another significant development was Modi's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, where Modi pledged to help Russia end the Ukraine conflict. Unlike Western powers, which only stroke the fire with endless weapons and military aid, BRICS stands for resolution, for bringing peace rather than pushing nations towards endless conflict. So in this meeting, Modi's support for peace aligns closely with Russia's own interest in a stable, multipolar world. And make no mistake, this stance directly undermines the Western playbook, which has relied on fueling conflicts to keep certain nations subordinate. With India expressing a desire to see an end to the war in Ukraine, BRICS is pushing itself as a voice for alternatives to militaristic, exploitative agendas. This partnership doesn't just suggest solidarity, it threatens the West's stranglehold on global narratives. It's a stance that says we refuse to play by your rules, to pit nations against each other for profit. India's cooperation with Russia is about self determination, about rejecting the Western model that only sees war as a tool for profit. One of the most powerful outcomes of this summit was the collective condemnation of Israel's actions by the BRICS countries. Despite India being a not a full sponsor, but a sort of sponsor. Now in Western circles, criticizing, and I mean at the upper echelons of the Western circles, because even Western countries, as this conflict in the Middle East has unfolded, they've been criticizing Israel and recognizing Palestine, because of the war. In the upper echelons of the Western circles, criticizing Israel often means facing powerful lobbies and Zionist influence over media and policy. Yet BRICS stood firm and called for a ceasefire, demanding that Israel's aggression come to an end at last. Let's think of the magnitude of this move. Here, you have a coalition of global powers openly calling out Israel's actions, something you don't simply see in US dominated alliances. This condemnation highlights a stark difference. While the West arms and supports Israel in oppressing Palestinians, BRICS advocates for peace and justice. This stance is not just symbolic, it challenges the global power structure that Israel has, you know, used to act with impunity, often at the expense, most often actually, at the expense of innocent lives and regional stability as a whole. BRICS represents a world increasingly fed up with Zionist agendas that have hijacked diplomacy and continue to spread violence under the guise of security. This condemnation is a message to the world. The days of unchecked support for apartheid regimes are numbered. Nations are now taking sides, and BRICS has made clear where it fucking stands. Now, let's turn to the historic breakthrough between India and China. In a meeting, marking the first such dialogue in 5 whole years, the two countries have resolved their border crisis. For years, Western powers have relinquished, not relinquished, relished. Oh my God, I am not thinking right now. Relinquished. Western power relinquishing anything, please. Okay. But yeah, no, relished in the conflict between India and China, seeing it as a sort of, wedge issue to keep these influential BRICS members from fully cooperating. But this agreement signals something that the West should fear. Unity among BRICS nations. Imagine in Asia, where two of the world's most populous nations, India and China, stand together instead of apart. This represents a seismic shift, one that defies the age-old tactics of divide and conquer. BRICS is setting an example that issues between nations can be resolved internally without the need for Western mediation that too often rather fuels division. Much, extreme division. So like as we wrap up, let's consider what BRICS and what this BRICS summit truly represents for our future. This summit was about more than the individual actions of its members. It was about showing the world that there's a powerful alternative to a world dominated by Western or Zionist hegemonic agendas. BRICS is laying the groundwork for a new order, one that prioritizes peace, sovereignty, and justice over imperialism and oppression. For those of us seeking an anti-Zionist, pro-East vision of global politics, and pro-East doesn't have to necessarily mean anti-West, but it's the West that continues to aggress, continues to throw these economic boomerangs at the East, and it just comes back at us tenfold. And Russia is fucking thriving right now. And have you checked your grocery bill as of late, ladies and gentlemen? The success of BRICS is more than hopeful. And I say this as a resident of the West. It's the start of a realignment where nations stand on equal footing and refuse to be pawns. This BRICS-led order is about rewriting the rules and ending the history of exploitation. We are witnessing a shift, a growing refusal to bow to pressures that serve only a few at the expense of the many. So, I want to thank you for joining me as we explored this ground-breaking summit and this tangible reason, justification even, for hope. Stay tuned as we continue to watch these developments, and remember, the tides of global power are shifting. BRICS has spoken, and the world is listening.